Hello everyone. Here are the homework corrections for some of the homework the other night. So this first question says, find the ratio of the area of the square to the area of the trapezoid and simplify if possible. Now the word ratio means what? That's the first thing you'd have to identify. So a ratio is a division. So we want to do the division of the area of the square to the area of the trapezoid. And usually this kind of calculation is done so that you can find out what percentage of the complete area, or the total area, is the area of the square covering. So the area of the square is smaller than the area of the trapezoid. So what percentage of the total area is it covering? So what are we going to need? Well, the area of a square is length times width. Now the area of a trapezoid is one of those areas that a lot of people will forget the formula for. So here it is. It's A plus B all times H divided by 2. Okay. So the A and the B are the lengths at the top of the trapezoid and along the entire base of the trapezoid. The height of the trapezoid is given by this dimension here, divided by 2. So let's take a look at what we have here. Now, I wrote length times width for the area of the square. Now really, both of those are the same, so we can call it side squared. All right. And in this case, side squared is probably the best way to use it, okay? I was just going to mention that the side is actually the height of the trapezoid as well, so we could almost call it h squared, but I don't want to confuse things, so we'll just leave it like that. So the square's dimensions are 10x by 10x. So I'm going to use green for the area of the square. So we've got 10x squared is the dimensions side times side for the square, and that gives 100x squared. Now for the area of the trapezoid, what do we have? Well, we have A plus B, and like I said, A is the length at the top here, which would be 10x, plus B. Now what is the length of the base length here? Well, we know this little piece is 10x, so it would be 10x plus the two little pieces that we have here, which would be 8 plus 8, which is 16. So that becomes 10x plus 16 times h. Well, the height is also just 10x because this is a square, so these two lengths are the same. And that's all divided by 2. Now you could do all of this in one formula, the formula for the ratio, but I find that it's easier often to do separate equations if they're very complicated, and then to bring them back into the ratio later on. So we've already simplified the area of the square as much as possible, 100x squared. Let's simplify the area of the trapezoid. So we've got 10x plus 10x, which would be 20x plus 16 times 10x over 2. Now, the 20x plus 16 can actually be factored, so we're going to do that right away as well. Both of them can be divided by 4. So we've got 4 times 5x plus 4 times 10x divided by 2. And there's a couple of steps you probably could have skipped here if you see what's coming. So the 4 can be divided by the 2. And the 10 also could have been divided by the 2. Now it's only one of them gets divided here because this is a multiplication, so you don't divide both, right? So be careful. These are multiplying, so only one of them gets canceled out with the bottom. But there's going to be a 2 left over, which I'm going to show with a different color here. And that 2 is going to combine with the 10x. So our final simplified version would be 20x times 5x plus 4. Now I don't want to expand this because we're going to be combining it in a ratio and we want to see if anything cancels out, so it's actually better to leave it factored. So let's combine it all back into the area of the square divided by area of the trapezoid. So the area of the square is 100x squared. The area of the trapezoid is 20x times 5x plus 4. And now we're going to divide downwards. So 100 divided by 20 is 5 over 1. X squared divided by x, 1x will be left over at the top. And our final answer is 5x divided by 5x plus 4. And the 5x's cannot cancel because of the plus down here. So that would be the final answer. Now the question did not ask for restrictions. We would have set our restrictions from the denominator, which would have been 20x and 5x plus 4 if we had to, but it didn't ask for it, so we're not going to do restrictions here. Okay, next question. Find the ratio of the volume to the surface area for the rectangular prism shown. Simplify if possible. So very similar to the previous question, we have volume of the prism divided by surface area. Of the prism. So let's figure out the volume formula for a rectangular base prism is length times width times height. The surface area for a rectangular base prism is based on the fact that there's 2 of every side. So there's front and back, top and bottom, left and right. Okay, so I'm actually going to pull the 2 as a factor out of the equation. So we've got, what is the, let's start with top and bottom. So the bottom measurements are x plus 4 times 2x minus 2. And I'm going to put that in a big bracket. Plus, we've got front and back. So x plus 4 times x plus 4 is the area for that. And then we've got left, right sides. So I'm running out of room here, so I'm just going to put it below. So our side length would be, or a side area would be 2x minus 2 times x plus 4. So this brings up an interesting question here because we have to actually, do we expand this? And the question is, we're going to have to expand it because these are additions and not multiplications. So if, I mean, this is going to end up being one trinomial most likely, and that trinomial may be factorable. So we're definitely going to want to expand that. For our length times width times height, we have, I'm going to use, this is L, this is W, and this is H. So we have 2x minus 2 times x plus 4 times x plus 4, which would be x plus 4 squared. Okay, so let's start to simplify our surface area. So I'm just going to write the 3 quadratics one after the other here, and then we'll add them up. Okay, so we have, if we use our FOIL or our double distributivity idea, so we've got x times 2x, which is 2x squared. X times minus 2 is minus 2x plus 8x which would be plus 6x. And then plus 4 times negative 2 is minus 8. And then we've got x plus 4 squared. So x plus 4 squared is going to be x squared. And then plus 4x gives plus 8x plus 16. And then our third quadratic is going to be 2x times x, which is 2x squared, plus 8x minus 2x is plus 6x, and then minus 2 times 4 is minus 8. So that quadratic is the exact same as the first one. And that's happening because we have a square shape here. So I didn't even realize that would mean that all of those rectangles, the top and bottom and side to side, are exactly the same, but I'm realizing it now, so it's not a big deal. So now we're just going to add all of those up, right? So we've got 2x squared plus x squared plus 2x squared. And I mean, you could have laid this out however you wanted to, folks, but I'm just choosing to do it this way. So 4 plus 1 is 5x squared. 6x plus 8x plus 6x is 12 plus 8, which is 20x. And then plus 16 minus 16 gives 0. So this actually doesn't end up as a trinomial. It ends up as a binomial. And we can factor that binomial. Both of those are divisible by 5x. So that gives x plus 4 left. So now I'm going to go and do the ratio. And again, we're doing the ratio of the volume divided by the surface area. So volume divided by surface area is equal to 2x minus 2 times x plus 4 squared, all divided by 5x times x plus 4. And now, because everything is multiplying and dividing, one of the x plus 4s will cancel out with one of the x plus 4s. So our final answer is going to be 2x minus 2 times x plus 4, all divided by 5x. Now, I apologize in advance if I made any mistakes for either of the questions that we've already done or any of the questions we do beyond. Small mistakes, we're going to forgive. The math is still going to be accurate to some extent when it comes to the steps followed. Okay, let's continue. So the dimensions of a rectangular prism are represented by binomials as shown, and this time it's not a square-based rectangular prism. Write a simplified expression that represents the surface area. Write a simplified expression that represents the volume. And if x represents 7, what are the surface area and the volume of the prism? So for A, the surface area is equal to 2 times. So top and bottom would be 2x plus 3 times x minus 3. And then front and back would be x plus 4 times x minus 3. And then, so we did top and bottom, front and back, so side and side. So 2x plus 3 times x plus 4. So same thing here. I'm just going to expand those trinomials down below, add them together, and then we'll come back and put them into the equation. So we've got 2x times x, which is 2x squared, 2x times negative 3, which is negative 6x plus 3x, which would be negative 3x, plus 3 times minus 3 is minus 9. And then x times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is negative 3x plus 4x. Is plus x, plus 1x. And then plus 3 times negative 3 is negative 12. And then we've got 2x times x, which is 2x squared, 2x times 4 is 8x. 8x plus 3x is plus 11x. And then plus 3 times plus 4 is plus 12. So adding those three together, we get, now adding those three together, we get 2x plus 2x squared plus 2x squared plus x squared is 5x squared. Minus 3x plus x is minus 2x plus 11x is plus 9x. So it's 12 minus 3 is 9. And then plus 12 minus 12 is 0 minus 9 up here. Now, I just realized that I think I made a mistake in the previous question. And that mistake is I forgot that there's a 2 in front of the surface area here. So that means that my surface area should actually have a 2 in front here, which would make this a 10, which would also make this a 10. So sorry about that. It's one of the hazards of taking work off to the side is you have to remember that if you put it back into the original equation that there might be something there as well. So I did catch it, but so what is my surface area formula? It's 2 times 5x squared plus 9x minus 9. So I'm going to let you check to see if that surface area can be factored. Okay. So that is going to be my simplified expression. Now we have to do one for the volume. Now volume is just length times width times height. So 2x plus 3, x minus 3. And I'm missing x plus 4. And that is going to be the simplified expression for that one. We're not going to expand it because that would give a cubic relationship. The factored version is better. Okay. And then it says if x represents 7 centimeters, what are the surface area and the volume of the prism? So that is not difficult, folks. I'm going to leave that up to you. Just substitute 7 in for x for both of these. And again, check to see what you get. For question 18, it says, for a solid cone with a radius r, a height of h, and slant height of s, find the ratio of the volume to the surface area. Simplify if possible. Now this is listed as an inquiry and problem solving question, which usually means these are more difficult questions. Part B says determine whole number values for r, h, and s that give the ratio in part A a numerical value of 1. So I'm not sure if you've seen or if you remember the formulas for the volume and surface area of a cone. These are the two formulas here. So the volume of a cone is pi r squared h divided by 3, and the surface area of a cone is pi r squared plus pi r s. Now what are all of those variables representing? Specifically the s a lot of students will forget. So first of all, the radius would be the radius of the circle. The height of the cone is measured down the interior height here, so that is your h. And the slant height is measured along the edge, like so. Okay, so there's no numbers given, so we're just doing a straight algebra simplification, just like we were doing before. So they want to do the ratio of the volume to the surface area. So we're doing volume over surface area. All right. Now the volume formula is pretty much already as simplified as it can get, but what can we do with the surface area? Well, I don't know if you noticed that both of the terms here contain a pi and an r. So if I write pi r, that would become r plus s as the simplified or factored version of that. So now if I do volume divided by surface area, I get, and I'm going to write it the division way so that we can see what's going to happen. So as soon as you're dividing with a fraction involved, you have to use the multiplication of the reciprocal. If I were to do the reciprocal of this, it's going to become 1 over pi r times r plus s. And that means that one of these r's is going to cancel out with one of those r's. The pi is going to cancel out with the pi. And what are we left with? We're left with h divided by, sorry, rh. I forgot that r is still there. So rh divided by 3 times r plus s. Now, I am actually not going to do part B with you. Okay, they say determine whole number values of r, h, and s that give the ratio in part A a numerical value of 1. So if we I will start it off for you. If we want this to be equal to 1, that means r times h has to equal 3 times r plus s. Right? So if you work your way through different values of r, h, and s here to try to make sure that this multiplication is equal to that multiplication, then you should be able to figure it out. So one thing you could do, by the way, folks, is because r is in the same position as 3, you could say that r is equal to 3. And then if r is equal to 3, figure out an s value that will make h, so that means h could be both basically anything. And then you just make sure that that bracket equals to that. You could also make h equal to 3 instead and see what happens there. So a couple of things just to get you started, but I'd like you to think about those ones on your own. That's question 18. So question 13 is write it and simplify an expression that represents the fraction of the area of the large rectangle covered by the shaded rectangle. The fraction of the area of the large rectangle. So what is the total area? Or from that total area, what does the shaded area cover as a fraction? So we need the area of the inner rectangle divided by the area of the total rectangle. That's what they're asking us to find. So what is the area of the inner rectangle? Well, that's going to be length times width of the inner rectangle, which is x plus 1 over 4, times x minus 2 over 3, and let's multiply those two together. Now we don't want to expand. Again, it's better to have it factored. However, the denominators can come together. Remember, it's top times top, bottom times bottom when we're multiplying, so that's just a 12. Now the area of the total rectangle is going to be the outer dimensions, which is x plus 1 over 2 times x minus 3 over 2. And that'll just give x plus 1 times x minus 3 over 4. And now we have to divide the two. So I'm actually going to write it, even though it's a fraction written this way, I'm going to write it x plus 1 times x minus 2 over 12 divided by x minus 1, oh sorry, x plus 1 again, x minus 3 over 4. And I prefer to write it that way so that you can see the multiplication of a reciprocal coming up. Okay, so it's going to be x plus 1 times x minus 2 over 12 times 4 over x plus 1 times x minus 3. So we multiply by the reciprocal. And now we can cancel some stuff out. So x plus 1 and x plus 1 will cancel. 4 and 12 become 1 and 3. So what do we have left? We have 1 times x minus 2, which is x minus 2, all divided by 3 times x minus 3, and that is our simplified expression for that ratio. I'm pretty sure that's the end of that question. It is. Now for this question, which is probably one of the most important questions from the homework, because this question, or this style of question, is often asked in like assessments and stuff like that. So it says 2 rectangles have common sides with a right triangle as shown. The areas and widths of the rectangles are indicated. Write and simplify an expression for the area of the triangle. So when I read a word problem like this, usually the first thing I'll start with is the last sentence and try to focus in on what exactly am I asked to find. They're asking me to find the area of a triangle, so let's identify what that is. The area of a triangle is base times height over 2. So what do I need? I need the base length and I need the height, which are not given to me. So now I have to try to figure out how am I going to find those things. Well, if we just concentrate on the base here, they gave me the area of the rectangle, and the rectangle is connected to the base, so they share a side length. So that means if I can find the side length of that rectangle, then I found also the base of the triangle. And the same thing goes with the height. This rectangle's area is given, the width is given. We need to find the length of that rectangle, which corresponds to the height of the triangle. Well, how do we find a length given an area and another length in a rectangle? Well, we know that the area of a rectangle is length times width, so just rearranging that formula, it's area divided by, and it's either length or width, it doesn't matter, okay? Depends on the rectangle. So if we're looking for a width, we'd be dividing by the length. If we were looking for the length, we'd be dividing by a width. And I'm going to change it here because usually I like to call the longer sides of rectangles the length, and both of these are the longer sides of the rectangles. So we're just dividing the area by the width, okay, for both of these. So let's do that separately, okay? So I instead of calling it L though, I am going to call it B. So the calculation for B, using this rectangle down here, would be the area for B, the area that contains B, which would be 2x squared minus 3x plus 1, all divided by x plus 2. At the same time, I'm going to write the other area for H, or that contains H, which would be 2x squared plus 10x plus 12, all divided by the width, which is x minus 1. All right, let's see if we can factor the tops, and let's try to remember, because I've already forgotten once, to sub it back into the equation after we're done that. So we're going to factor the top here. This is a type 2 quadratic. So our, I'll just do it here. We have 2 as our multiplication. We're looking for 2 numbers that equal to negative 3 and add to 2. Multiply to 2 and add to negative 3. And that would be negative 2 and negative 1. So setting up my brackets. This one's a little bit easier because there's only one combination that gives 2x squared, which would be 2x times x. And then 2x times what equals negative 2. So that would be negative 1. And x times what equals negative 1. That would also be, 2x times negative 1 is negative 2, and x times negative 1. Yeah, so that works. So we'd end up with negative 2 minus 1x, negative 2x minus 1x, which gives negative 3x, and positive 1. Yeah, so that's all good. And that's all divided by x plus 2. Now for this one here, we can common factor a 2 before we begin. So it's going to be 2 times x squared plus 5x plus 6 all divided by x minus 1. We need two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to 5. And the 6 and 5 combination is tricky, but this one's not tricky because both of them are positive. So we get x plus 3 and x plus 2. And all of that is divided by x minus 1. So now we have to substitute those things into the area of the triangle formula. So base times height, so 2x minus 1 times x minus 1, all divided by x plus 2, times the height, which is 2 times x plus 3, x plus 2, all divided by x minus 1, and all of that is divided by 2. So you got to be careful when you write an equal sign. The formatting is supposed to be the equal sign is around the main division of the ratio. Okay, so if I wrote the equal sign up here, that's technically wrong. So it's right here. So looking at just the numerator, there's things that cancel. The x minus 1 will cancel with the x minus 1. The x plus 2 will cancel with the x plus 2. Now, I don't know if you can see that this 2 would therefore cancel with that 2, but if you can't see it, I'll show you why. What are we left with? Well, we're left with 2x minus 1 times 2, which I'm actually going to put out in front here, times x plus 3, all over 1 divided by 2. Well, if it was all over 1 divided by 2, it would be all over 1 times 1/2, which means that 2 ends up just being under here. And if you don't see how, please write out all the steps and verify it for yourselves. Okay? And once we're done that, this 2 will cancel out with that 2, and we're left with 2x minus 1 over x plus 3 as our final answer for that simplified expression. And I believe that was the last question of the homework. So if you struggled with any of the questions, I hope that helped. I hope that the answers are correct as well. If I made any small mistakes, that's fine. So have a great day, folks.